These two guys have Minnesota sports flowing in their veins. Mackey and Judd on SKOR North and SKORNorth.com.
My backup quarterbacks have gone up to Kirk Cousins' home, his building up in Minneapolis, and Andy Dalton beat him 2 years ago, and then Cooper Rush beat him in Cooper Rush's first ever NFL start last year, about this time on a Sunday night game, solo stage game, in Minneapolis. So Kirk Cousins has lost back-to-back years to my backup quarterback. What does that tell you? It tells you we have owned Kirk Cousins since he was in Washington.
Didn't I just tell you he's a different guy now? You don't think he's different than what he was in Washington?
Dak is 4-1 against Kirk Cousins.
Oh, God. That's the shot in the arm we needed here. That right there is the shot in the arm. The Vikings, maybe a hangover on the horizon after a big franchise-altering win, right? Oh, man, we're going to be dragging this week. Let's pop in some tape of Skip and Shannon disrespecting the franchise. Yes.
Because he loves the Cowboys, right? Like he's trying to convince himself the Cowboys
we now, right? He's using we when talking about the Cowboys.
Yes,
okay.
yeah. In fact, I think he's done. Some TikToks where if the Cowboys lose, he takes his Cowboys jersey and throws it in his garbage. I've seen that one. Like he's got a Cowboys jersey. Oh hell, he doesn't burn it. Yeah, he just throws it in the garbage, and that's his bit now. So yes.
Actually,
full on.
He probably, what does he make, like $6, $7, $8 million a year now? He probably, like most people when they get to be that rich, they don't wear the same outfit more than once, right? So he's probably got a new Cowboys jersey for each day of the year that he wants to wear a Cowboy. So he probably does just throw it away.
Yeah,
just light it on fire.
Must be nice when you make $8 million a year.
Well, this is Mackey and Judd, daily Minnesota sports entertainment. Speculation, therapy, celebration in this case for the Vikings this week. And I think we should, before we get to write that down, predictions and an accountability session later on in the show, you and I both see the tweets, the emails, and Declan too. It was mostly Judd and I kind of leading this charge, I guess, back in January of they should blow it up. It's time. You got a 33-year-old glass ceiling mediocre quarterback, bunch of dudes like Harrison Smith, Adam Thielen, Eric Kendricks, and others on the wrong side of 30.
Yep.
Is a new coach and a new general manager. Really, you're just gonna swap out Rick and Mike, and you're gonna bring in Kwesi and KOC and a couple other guys like Harrison Phillips and stuff. You're gonna bring Patrick Peterson back, also over 30.
Yep.
And you're just gonna flip a switch. And that was our conversation back in January. We said if it were up to us, go get some draft capital for Cousins, maybe a couple other guys, and just get on with it, kind of like the Bears are doing. Just get into the next era of Vikings football. I admitted week 1, by the way, after the Vikings destroyed the Packers, I said, yeah, they made the right move. Based on how they look in week 1 and the vibes in the offseason, they made the right move trying again here. I don't know that we've heard Judd Zulgad comment on his commentary from back in January, so... Yep. We're going to create a safe space for you to
I appreciate that.
Talk through whatever you would like to talk through.
Anyone who is halfway decent at what we do or a politician knows the absolute key in moments of crisis like this is to distract. You've got to come up with a distraction. So how can I come up with a distraction that will make Vikings fans forget Phil just asked that question? I've got the distraction.
I'm on board. I'm on board.
Just get the flag.
There you go.
Flag.
You can hear it waving in the wind like that. So anyway, yeah, it's been great.
Well, what is your level of surprise, I guess? I mean, obviously there's still a lot of games to be played, and we have seen 2003. I don't want to put this out in the universe, but 2016, like, we have seen hot starts go awry. This feels different, though. This even like we were talking to Alex Boone last night on Trenches. He was on that 2016 team that started 5-0 and then didn't make the playoffs. And he said, "Dude, he literally said, dude, this is not at all comparable. The vibes are different. The talent level is different. He said we knew in those first 5 games, we were kind of looking around, even in the offensive line room, saying, can't believe we won that game. Can't believe, wow, this offensive line is sort of duct taped together right now. Can't believe we're 4-0 or 5-0. They kind of, even the players kind of knew this doesn't really feel like a 5-0 situation. He said this is totally different. But I guess what is your level of surprise going back to January?
Well, I did not expect that O'Connell would or could have this type of immediate impact, and especially on Kirk. We can debate Kirk's stats. We can debate Kirk. I mean, Kirk will be a lightning rod until the day that Kirk is not the Vikings quarterback. So that's not going to change. But what Kevin O'Connell has done, the ability to come back and win that game on Sunday in Buffalo, which is just absolutely still days later after the fact, boggles my mind. I would have never thought that he had the ability in his first year as a coach to get this type of performance, and set a tone and set a, to use Royce's favorite word, culture, which I believe to be the most important thing. So I am absolutely shocked. The other thing too now is you did bring back a lot of guys who are not getting younger, and so there was risk there, and there will be risk going forward there. But that being said, if you're going to get this type of performance, then hell yeah. Then yes, I was definitely wrong. I'm glad to be wrong. It's far more fun. I was very skeptical if this group could come back and perform the way that the Vikings thought. I was very skeptical if one guy could change Kirk. But I'm going to give you a play on Sunday, the 4th and 18 play. If we're talking about Kirk, and we can talk about his stats, they're not as great, but he's winning games. But I'm going to give you one play in particular to how his mind has been retrained, reset at an advanced age too. He ain't young. Go back today and watch the 4th and 18 play. Yeah. I went back and watched it about 8 times because I wrote a column about Justin Jefferson for my friends at VikingsWire.com. But here's what I didn't see at the time. It's 4th and 18.
Can I guess?
Sure.
Hawkinson underneath.
Wide open.
He throws that pass to Hawkinson every year except for this year.
And Hawkinson is approximately, I think it originated at the 27. Hawkinson is about 10 yards down. So he would have had a chance. I don't know he would have made it, but he would have had a chance. But that's exactly the play. Hawkinson is wide open as a safety valve. And there are 4 rushers, and there is pressure on Kirk. And the pass to Jefferson, I've heard it downplayed. Well, I mean, it was very lucky. And you know what? Yeah, there's some fortune. There's some great play by Jefferson. He still has to throw that ball. Like, I'm not going to ding Kirk for, well, it wasn't a perfect pass. It's 4th and 18. It's heavy coverage. It's a do or die. It's the exact type of pass we have been begging Kirk, you've got to make this. And to your point, Phil, Hawkinson is wide open. And we've talked about since the day that Hawkinson was acquired, he is a king of yak. So there's a chance you get those 18 yards. But he didn't make that pass. He made the incredibly risky pass. And yes, Jefferson makes a great play. But these are the type of things I didn't think possible. So I am more than happy to be proven incorrect because this has been great fun to watch.
I'm gonna do something we've never done before. We on Mackey and Judd, anyways. This is just for the YouTube audience. We will make it audio friendly. We spent 10 minutes talking about this exact thing on Trenches with Boone, with Boone breaking down the film. I'm so glad you brought this up because when people, and I'll pop this up on the screen here for the YouTube audience. There's a section of people that think, oh, finally now people are coming around on Kirk, like they're coming around and seeing what we've seen all along. And if you've been paying any actual attention to the last 5 years, what you just said is the single biggest difference in him. And as a result, maybe his stats are suffering a little bit like the back of the football card stats. But that was a game, road environment, one of the best defenses in the NFL, and you're down by double digits in the second half. He's already thrown a couple bad interceptions, and I will pop this up for you because this is Boone and I both came to the same conclusion watching this, which was, oh my God. 2018, 19, 20, 21, this is the 4th and 18 play.
Yep.
Every one of these other seasons, I'm going to roll it here. Watch TJ Hawkinson here, bottom right. So Justin Jefferson is up here. Whoops. Jefferson is up top.
He chips and releases.
And so you see him running an underneath route. The Bills it's 4th and 18. The Bills are going to allow TJ Hawkinson, if he wants to catch a pass, 5 or 10 yards off the line of scrimmage and run for 6 yards of yak and then tackle him maybe for the YouTube audience, like somewhere right here, right? Because the chains are up there. And so Kirk looks down the field, great protection.
Yep.
Sees Jefferson between like 4 defenders, by the way, but this is the throw you have to make.
Correct.
It's probably going to be picked. But if you don't make the throw, you can't win the game. Yep. If you check down to TJ Hawkinson, it's a completion. It's probably like a 15-yard completion. And he probably comes up 3 yards short. And gall dang it helps your statistics. But the game is over right on the spot.
Yep.
I think you're right. I noticed that like there's 10 yards of cushion. Remember going back to, and this doesn't have to be like a film study edition of Mackey and Judd, but since you brought it up, I wanted to show you. We did a full breakdown on trenches on Purple Daily, so go check that out. But, it reminds me of before the season when Kirk was talking about some of the conversations him and Kevin O'Connell were having during these training camp and OTA minicamp practices where he would have maybe a clunky looking practice and the media would ask him afterwards, so, hey, what, how's it going with the system, whatever. And he said, the biggest thing we're working on is, I will move off a read because throughout my career, I'll see a certain read or tight coverage. And that is, and he didn't say this, but he implied that's too dangerous of a throw. Yes. And so I'll move to the next read. And KOC is coming up to me after the play during practice saying, hey, when you get that look, I want you to throw that ball. And Kirk is essentially saying, okay. It's a little risky for my blood. Kirk's the guy at the poker table that's waiting for like ace king before he even puts chips in the pot.
Yep. And
Kevin O'Connell has gotten him to be, especially in these situations where you're playing on the road, you're trailing in the second half, you got to double down, man. You can't just like take your chips and go away from the table. Like, no, you need to double down right now. And he did that against Buffalo, and it worked.
And the game that Irv Smith got hurt in, go back to that one. That's a 3rd and long, and he did check it down to him. And Irv got exactly what happened. I think it was like 3rd and 10, and Irv got 8 yards. And that's the if this is the correct word for a guy who I believe is already 34, that's the player maturation that you're looking for. Because yes, you know what? Justin Jefferson did a great job. But in that situation, the ball has to be thrown there. Yeah. The ball has to be thrown there. And that, to me, is so where I was wrong was I did not think that Kirk or his head coach were capable of getting him to this point this quickly. I simply didn't. And I thought that play, the play that you just showed us, where Hawkinson is wide open, and he's going to get a ton of yards. It's going to be a huge chunk of yards. That is the type of play that if you had shown me that forecasting into the future in July or August, I would have said that ain't happening this year.
Yeah. And what's beautiful about this for the Vikings and for Kirk is he's unlocking a new level of aggressiveness, situational aggressiveness, if we could coin a new phrase.
Football.
And he's got the arm talent to do it. And he's seeing some results. And yes, there's going to be some interceptions mixed in here, but the net is going to be a positive. And so to be able to trust that Jefferson's going to come down with that football, again, he might throw 2 or 3 more interceptions, getting a little too risky. But much like Matthew Stafford last year, that guy led the NFL with 18 interceptions.
Yep.
Who cares? He was aggressive. It added more chunk plays over the top. It put more pressure on defenses. And I keep bringing up Boone because he was magnificent on this podcast that we posted this morning. But he said, the more, if you just keep settling for the stuff that the defense is giving you, it shrinks the field and makes it almost impossible to score a bunch of points and win games.
Yes.
But even if you're not completing all the passes, if you're just constantly telling the defense, hey, we're going down there. We're throwing this ball into double coverage because it's Justin Jefferson. It actually does the reverse. It then opens things up underneath more later on in the game when you might need those plays.
Which has to be an incredibly difficult thing for a risk-adverse quarterback to do, and O'Connell's getting him to do it, which is why I go back to, and this is not a criticism of Kirk, but that's why, to me, this is a partnership between coach and QB. Mm-hmm. It's not just a QB who said, you know what, I am nearing my mid-30s and have never had, real success, certainly playoff success. I'm going to cut her loose. This is a coach who said, here's what you can do. and Kirk listened, which is another important thing, because I think that there are times where Kirk probably has said, no. So I was wrong about Kirk's ability, at least through 9 games, about his ability to change. And I also did not think that a guy like Patrick Peterson would have this much left. Mm-hmm. I mean, let's be honest. He's a Pro Bowl player right now. So the competitive rebuild, to me, it sounds, it's great. Yeah, competitive rebuild. But the reality is they are milking from players a lot that I didn't think that they could. And the other thing that's impressive is within the season, Phil, they're improving them. Like, I think Kendricks and Hicks, I don't know that they played great weeks 1 through 4, but they've improved. And I know the PFF grades aren't kind consistently, but you know what? Eric Kendricks recovered a bleeping ball in the end zone for a touchdown.
He's been great.
Like, I'm not going to sit here and ding him for but now if it's obvious he is not making plays, that's a problem. But they have been able to get way more than I thought from a lot of guys. And it's weird too, because even guys that aren't necessarily statistically sitting on great years, Dalvin, you know what? Dolphins game, this game, gave you 2 huge plays.
Yeah. Yeah, the 80. It didn't look like he had the same juice in the first few weeks. Like that 81-yard. His long run in the first month of the season was like 15 yards.
Right.
And now all of a sudden he's hitting home runs again. So there's another big difference this season for both Kirk and for the Vikings that I want to throw at you guys. But this week, so it's Give to the Max Day this week. It's also the 8-year anniversary, and you guys might remember this from news stories 8 years ago, that the Schoonover family suffered an unspeakable tragedy when their son Patrick died of a heart condition on the ice moments after scoring a goal. And so ever since then, over the last 8 years, the Schoonover family has been raising money through the Patrick Schoonover Heart Foundation to A, identify heart defects in kids 14 to 24, and B, to provide free heart screens for kids those same ages. And so we'd love to raise here at SKOR North this week at least $1,000. $1,000. And if we do, Mike, who is Patrick's dad, is going to match the donations that are generated by the SKOR North audience here. So if you could, even if you can give $10, $20, givemn.org/SKOR for Patrick. That's SKOR for Patrick. Givemn.org/SKOR for Patrick. And we'll talk to Mike this week on the show and just kind of get his story from 8 years ago. But any help from you guys, the audience, would be appreciated for this cause. Back to the Vikings here. So I was so curious during that comeback on Sunday when they go to overtime. I'm like, man, how many times have they really in the Kirk Cousins era gone on the road and beat a team like this? So, and I don't even know how you quantify like this. And so I just said, how many times have they won a road game against a winning team? A team that at the end of not a team that was like 2-1 in week 4, but a team that finished the season with a winning record.
Sure.
How many times in the Kirk Cousins era? And going into 2022, I counted 4 out of 20 tries. So they had 20 road games, including playoffs, against teams that finished the season with a winning record. And the Vikings won 4 of them. 2018, they beat the 9-7 Eagles halfway through the year. Mm-hmm. 2019, they beat the, was 18 the year? No, 18 they beat the Eagles. Yes.
Yes, that was Kirk's first year.
It was the revenge game from the NFC Championship game.
Yep.
Then 2019, in the playoffs, they beat the Saints on the road, 13-3. 2020, they beat the 13-3 Packers at Lambeau. Now the Vikings were like 2-5, so the Vikings
and they ran the ball all day because it was so cold. I think windy,
and that was also I think that was maybe coming off the disastrous Falcons game.
It was bye week, I think, and then they played the Packers.
So they did not trust to throw the ball 25 or 30 times
Those
either.
Were the issues, yes.
And then 2021, they beat the 9-8 Chargers. So beating 9-7 teams, 9-8 teams on the road, it's fine. Beating 13-win teams on the road, there's been 2 of them since 2018. And then if you want to count just, games against winning teams, 4 of them. This season, Bills, Dolphins started a backup quarterback, but they're going to finish above 500.
Yep.
The Commanders have a fighting chance to finish above 500. That was a tougher game than most people thought.
Yes.
So they've already got at least 2, maybe 3 wins on the road against winning teams when the season's complete. And to me, that is one of the final pieces of, okay, as a quarterback and as a team, how good are you really? Are you really taking the next step into contention? If you can't beat really good teams on the road, the answer is probably no. You're not. You're probably not making a playoff run.
Mm-hmm. The last 2 games too, the Commanders game and this game. This game was against a far more formidable foe, but they're both impressive because they're both muddy, ugly, murky type of games that don't lend themselves to, that's what's sort of weird about this whole thing about, just once in a while, I'd really like you to blow teams out. Well, if you blow teams out, it probably means they had a really bad day. Mm-hmm. Unless they're crap, in which case you sort of dismiss it as, okay, you beat Team X, who cares? But, this whole thing about, like to see you win some games real big. Well, that's awesome if you have that type of team. This Vikings team is not that team, and it's not constructed. Now, what we've talked about and what I like is, name me the last time, 17 for sure qualifies, but name me the last time that the Vikings have won a series of games that feel like they could be playoff games. Because the Commanders game is very much like a first-round game. Like you can rip them all you want, but that's on the road. It's ugly. It's not easy. You make some huge plays. The Bills game is a marvelous game. But my point being is you are now stacking wins that feel like playoff wins, which ordinarily starts, if you're good, this time of year. And that's impressive. And again, that to me is such a credit to O'Connell and what this guy at the age of 37 has instilled in almost no time.
Yeah. I agree. I don't know that they've had a string of wins like this at all since 2017. I think they've had a couple 3 and 4 game winning streaks, but there's Lions mixed in there, and it's not exactly like we just went through. I mean, they don't have a road resume. They have basically 4 road wins since 2018 against winning teams in 20 tries. And I'm not saying you're going to go 12-8 in those games or 15-5. You are playing good teams on the road, but if you're an actual contender, you need to beat decent to good teams to elite teams on the road to prove yourself. And that's like, regardless of whether they lose a couple games, they might lose 3 more games down the stretch. It won't really impact my opinion of this team's ability to make a run because they already showed you that they can do this. So, like I said on Purple Daily, this win doesn't guarantee that you're going to go 16-1 and it's all smooth sailing. But it does guarantee that you can beat one of the best teams on the road. You know what your peak is, and it's a higher peak than we've seen ever in the Kirk Cousins era.
This also feels special. In fact, Chip and I talked about this on Purple Access. This, to me, and Chip agreed, feels far more like 2009 than 17. 17 was a lot of fun, and it was like this, whoa, Case Keenum's doing what? And now he did what? But 2009 just had this weird feeling of this feels special. And I'll give you the one small, but I think it's the key thing too. Seasons like 09 have a snapshot to them. Like if I ask you about that year, I think you're probably going to say Game 3, Lewis catch. Like that turned that whole year from, oh, this team could be good. They got Brett Favre to, oh my God, this is something is brewing here. Right now, I think it's very safe to say that the defining snapshot potentially of 2022 is going to be the Jefferson catch. It transcends the norm of, oh, that's a really nice play to that's a special play. And again, I'm giving everybody credit. Jefferson is the star of that play. But you know what? Kirk gets credit. And more importantly, I think what it does is it illustrates the resiliency here too. It illustrates a resiliency of this team, and I love this, does not give up. Jefferson made a catch where he basically said, screw it. I'm going to take the ball with my one hand, rake it back, and catch it. And that's also because he's a phenomenal talent. But it's another thing because it's also, you know what? It sort of perfectly summarizes through 9 games what we've seen so far, which is this will and belief that they're going to win games. Even if it's the ugliest win of all time, they're going to find ways.
Well, the theme of the day here is admitting that we were wrong. And so we're going to continue with some write that down predictions and an accountability session. Judd admitting that he was wrong here, a landmark moment presented by our friends at Federated Mutual Insurance Company. They're here as a guiding hand when you've got rocky, potential tumultuous things on the horizon. Yes, exactly. They're all about risk management, tools and resources, and they're all about measuring their success by your success. It's a true partnership when you partner up with Federated Insurance. Over 100 years of experience going back to 1904. FederatedInsurance.com, where it's our business to protect yours.
You like that? You like that?
All right, predictions coming up.